Hello, everyone, and welcome to Live Saturday Night. And apologies for us being a few minutes late. Technical difficulties on our first guest live this week. And getting things started and up and running. That's the beauty of live. You have to fix it all on the fly. So thanks everyone for joining. We're live across all the same platforms. But this week we have a few more subscribers. We went past the 10,000 subscriber mark on YouTube just recently. So thank you all for that. Really appreciate it. So tonight, as I said, we're going to have our first guest on. We said that we'd be doing some guest interviews or some guest episodes over the coming weeks and months. So tonight is our first. As I've posted about, it's my brother Gary. So I'm just going to introduce Gary before we bring him onto the screen here. So Gary is over 25 years managing, developing and leading businesses across multiple sectors: manufacturing, supply chain, logistics, HR, recruitment, media, advertising. There's a lot in this. I'm not going to go through it all. Gary can talk about this, and he's currently the CEO of Meath Enterprise and Managing Director of the new Boyne Valley Food Innovation District. There is some more, and I'm going to let Gary talk about that in a second. So as we're a little bit delayed, I'm going to bring Gary in and we can have a chat and he can talk a little bit about himself. Gary, welcome, and thanks for your patience while we got set up with the little tech hiccups. That's life. But yeah, thanks a million for agreeing to come on and be the first guest on this live Saturday night. So I was hoping maybe you could talk a little bit about yourself and just give people some background.
Thanks, Al. Glad to be your guinea pig on your new show. So Gary O'Mara is my name. Alan mentioned there. So currently CEO of Meath Enterprise and Managing Director of the Boyne Valley Food Innovation District. So for anybody that wouldn't be familiar, probably most, Meath Enterprise is a local government enterprise development company that supports startups and SMEs and runs kind of programs across all the secondary schools and designs and delivers programs into universities, all about helping people understand entrepreneurship and potentially develop their own businesses in due course. So we have some big enterprise centres and incubators. We run accelerator programs and all sorts of different training and mentoring sessions, events and conferences. So we have a big 85,000 square foot facility in Navan in County Meath, just on the outskirts of Dublin. And we basically, that'd be home to many kind of early stage startups and smaller and even larger SMEs. Within that particular building, there'd be kind of, media labs and TV studios, fab labs and maker spaces with 3D printing and CNC, laser cutting capability, food R&D labs, sensory testing facilities, meeting rooms, conference centers, all sorts of different things for companies that when they do come in, they get a good value kind of rent and a lot of shared services and access to all of these kind of spaces and all the different events and training and things that we can do to support them. And we have similar facilities in Kells and smaller ones in Enfield and Dunshaughlin and different parts of Meath, and we're also looking to branch out further afield outside of Ireland. So bit of traveling to the different continents over the past kind of several months, looking to build new partnerships and relationships and routes to market so that any companies that we are supporting, we can help them go global. The Boyne Valley Food Innovation District is exactly that. It's a regional to national project here in Ireland where we're looking to build those routes to market, not just for food companies, but for tech around AI and augmented reality, blockchain, robotics, machine learning, all that kind of stuff. And we have a lot of new builds and new projects in the making. That's really what we do. It's ecosystem development and regional development, building companies, building investable propositions, all things entrepreneurship. And yeah, it's good crack.
It sounds like it's really starting to grow at this stage. Is a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm doing this 12 years now. The background, as Alan mentioned, would have been different things, working for myself in transport, logistics, recruitment, media, advertising, consulting, various other things. But stumbled into this, I suppose, during the crash back in 2012. And kind of fell in love with the space and the sector and the type of work that I'm able to do and people I'm able to support. And so working very closely with national and international governments and large multinationals, smaller startups, everybody. It's really universities and the whole lot. So very lucky. And we did a book there recently. You're probably going to mention that, but
Yeah,
we did a book there recently, and probably has a copy of it there,
I do.
of Wood and Wool. It was
I have
really
my copy.
celebrating 25 years. There you go. It was celebrating 25 years of Meath Enterprise. Obviously, I'm not there that long myself, but the organisation in a previous form would have been established 25 years ago to support startups and SMEs. And the centre itself in Navan, the one I mentioned, it's 85,000 square foot. That was actually built as an exhibition centre back in 1980, long before it was ever an enterprise centre supporting startups or SMEs. And this book tells the story of why it was built and what happened in the previous kind of 50, 60, 70 years before they built that exhibition centre. So to try and cut it short, it's the furniture industry in Navan and that region of Meath just outside Dublin, as far back as the 1930s, a company called Navan Carpets that would have been a global kind of company, to the point that by the late 60s, it would have been about 650, 700 people working in the Navan Carpets factory in Navan. And there would have been carpets from that factory on cruise ships and government buildings and embassies all around the world, including the famous Waldorf Astoria. So it was a really big thing, the carpets, but also, as was furniture. There would have been about 47 different manufacturing and production plants developing furniture in Meath, and specifically around Navan. And I suppose, as that kind of picked up and really started to grow into the late 50s and into the 60s and even into the 70s, I suppose, there would have been these trade fairs that they were running through the local chamber and with the support of local government, and people from all over the world would have travelled to Navan. Sometimes up to 20,000 people would travel in for these trade fairs. And in days where there was no internet or social media or anything else that we're so used to now, I suppose they came in and trade fairs would be in schoolyards, community centres, parish halls, anywhere at all that they could get a bit of space, even outdoors with so many people. So obviously in the mid to late 70s, they had a brainstorm idea to build a large exhibition centre so that they could house all these trade fairs in one large location. And that's where the Navan Exhibition Centre was born. Now the Meath Enterprise Centre. So not everybody maybe on the call will know that Barry McGuigan was a famous world championship boxer here in Ireland for many years.
Yeah.
Back in the late 80s into the 90s. So Barry McGuigan himself would have fought in the Navan Exhibition Centre. Status Quo, I'm showing my age now, but I used to love them. But Status Quo played there a couple of times, and there would have been a lot of other things like election counts and the Aga Khan show jumping and all sorts of things would have happened during the 80s, when the trade fairs themselves probably weren't as popular during that crash, the 80s kind of recession. And obviously coming off the back of the 80s recession, globalization in China and other countries maybe were more competitive when it came to furniture manufacturing. So the industry itself kind of dissipated. And that's when, in the mid-90s, it was turned into an enterprise centre. And that's what the first kind of 11, 12 chapters of the book of Wood and Wool tell the story of the history itself, all the way up to when the centre was built. And the last chapter kind of tells the story of what the centre has been doing now for the past 25 years, since the furniture industry kind of tapered off, and what it is we're planning on doing for the future. And you'll see on the top here, for anyone that might be interested in paying attention going forward, the Enterprise series. So it's part of a series of books that we hope to write, where we hope to tell the stories, regional development stories and great entrepreneurship stories that maybe don't get the attention in mainstream media. And we want to be able to tell them and shine the light on the real talent that's out there doing amazing things at every level, not just in Ireland, but anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in being part of one of them books, let us know.
So we kind of spoke about that a little bit, and maybe what your plans might be. Who would be the perfect candidate for somebody like that, somebody that wants to get involved, and how would they go about that?
For one of the books?
Yeah.
Yeah, to be honest with you, when you look at this one, we were kind of lucky with this one because we had a story to tell, and we have a link to the past and the history. The enterprise series, though, could be about an entrepreneur that wants to tell their own story. It could be about a family business. It could be about a region in any part of the world. It could be, a particular town or a particular place or a particular kind of sector, like the furniture industry here. It could be anything at all. Where we'll kind of, we'll obviously we have a publishing company and we've the whole kind of wherewithal now to kind of go through the whole process. So we kind of learned, like you're learning now with your new podcast, Al, we learned how to do our first book and put it out there ourselves. So it could be anything at all, to be honest with you, from an entrepreneur to a town, to a village, to a sector, to a company, to a family business, anything. As long as we can fund it and we can make it work and there's a great story to tell, we'd be delighted to tell it and work with people on it.
And tying it into the work you're doing with Meath Enterprise, I'm sure are some of the businesses there interested in the series itself and looking to play a part in it in any way, or how does that look?
Absolutely, yeah, and not just businesses that we'd have in our centres. So we wouldn't just work with companies that are our clients or tenants directly. We'd work with larger companies, whether they're local, national, or international. So, bringing companies in from abroad, working with, different types of ag tech and food tech opportunities for the future or whatever, is something that we're really keen to do more of. And we're doing a little bit of that at the moment and looking to build facilities here in Meath and potentially here in Ireland where we can bring in companies and maybe through our Boyne Valley Food Innovation District initiative, using Ireland as a kind of a route to market or a hub where maybe American companies and international companies can get access to Europe or Asia, or Asia can get access to Europe or America or whatever, but we can be the facilitator or the go-between. That's really what we're trying to build in terms of a global food innovation ecosystem. So we're working with a lot of different people. We're open to working with everybody. So there's a lot of stories we could tell. I'm certainly not going to have time to tell all those stories. It's not our main business by any stretch, but we would be very interested in telling the ones that deserve to be told and need to be told, because like I said, there's a lot of heroes out there and amazing people out there, from entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs, people on the ground doing things that nobody really knows about and lots of people benefit from, and they're the kind of stories that we want to tell, or the history that hasn't been told, or the forgotten heroes of the past, or whatever it might be. Absolutely, there's a real kind of socially conscious and social focus to the enterprise series and why we want to do that. So
So I wanted to, and thanks for the information. Anybody that wants to learn more, absolutely get in touch, Meath Enterprise or Gary directly, and we can put some links in the video after this if you want to do that. But Gary, I wanted to kind of touch on some of the stuff in your background, in your history, in your career, and I suppose one of the simple questions you might ask a lot of people is, what kind of led you into your current career? What led you down this path? Starting way back from 18 to 20. What brought you into this particular field and area, and where you are today?
Business, I suppose. Yeah, I think I was always destined to end up in business or entrepreneurship or something like this, to be honest with you. I remember a story my parents told me when I was old enough to remember it, or maybe it was amongst friends or whatever, but I think I was in primary school and there was a business project and we had to get a bit of information about the stock exchange, and somehow at the age of, I can't remember exactly now, but I think it was about 7 or 8 or 9 years of age or something like that in primary school, I managed to get access over the phone to the CEO of the National Sugar Company, which was a PLC here in Ireland, to interview him and get information off him about the stock market and bring it into school as part of the project. So I suppose I always probably had the gift of the gab and the interest and whatever. I remember I did business and I did all those subjects in school and would have always probably been quite entrepreneurial and a bit of a wheeler dealer like growing up. But I did have ambitions and a dream to go to America. And I think I had the visa, everything organised, and a number of different things all lined up at the same time. I had a visa ready, and I wanted to go and work in the stock market, and in New York, and loved all those movies, Wall Street and everything else. But didn't quite work out like that. I ended up buying a property here at the age of 19. In Blanche, my first one, and bought a few more after that, and I was locked into Ireland ever since, and delighted with that. I was a real Celtic Tiger hub, so bought a few residential properties and got into that space, and then chauffeur businesses and logistics companies and recruitment agencies and various other things to chauffeur them was quite interesting. Maybe the readers will enjoy hearing that I chauffeured around the likes of Beyonce and Mel Gibson and Michael Caine and various other people there from when they were staying in the Four Seasons Hotel here in Dublin, which opened in 2001. So I had a number of cars doing that for a couple of years. Decided then it wasn't for me forever. So yeah.
I think the names you mentioned to me was Michael Caine, Beyonce, and was Justin Timberlake as well?
Actually, yeah, Jesus, there's one I forgot. Yeah, Justin Timberlake was in the car as well, and Louis Walsh and Lulu and a few Premier League football players that went there. I won't mention any names. Went out in the town in Dublin on the Raz and got drunk, and one of them puked all over the back of my head on the way back. I literally had to drag them out of the car.
We won't
show
name
them
anyone.
On the foyer of the Four Seasons, but I won't name anybody else. But look, good days. Yeah, always looking to do something different. And work for myself, and I just always had an interest in that. And then during, I suppose, the crash, the recession, things were pretty hard. Obviously, with property and other interests that were hit hard during that crash in 2008. There were tough times, and I suppose I stumbled across this. I moved out of Dublin in 2007. And moved out to rural Meath, hoping to work remotely and do all the things that people, I suppose, are trying to do now.
Yeah.
Better way of life, quality of living, where my family, that kind of stuff, or start my family. And but sure, things didn't really go to plan, I suppose. After I moved out, then everything kind of crashed. So business and property and everything else wasn't looking too good. And an opportunity came up in 2012, as I was coming through a lot of that and up and down to the city and up and down to Dublin, consulting and doing whatever I could to kind of pay bills and survive like most people at the time. And an opportunity came up to manage an enterprise centre. Very basic enough in terms of what we do now, and went for it. I'm lucky enough to get it, and I haven't really looked back. I never saw myself working in this kind of not-for-profit local government kind of space, doing this kind of work, but I think it was a role that was made for me, or it was a role that I made for myself once I got into this particular position, and something that I love. And I do at a national level, supporting hubs across the country and working with national government to kind of build ecosystems and this kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm happy out.
Yeah, on that then, I suppose then a question would be, what originally were your thoughts about success? Because this channel and the way we're doing things is kind of aimed about talking to people about success, what it takes, what it actually is, failure, all of the challenges that it mostly is and eventually there's a success. But when you were younger, what was success in your head first of all, and maybe how has that changed? What is it now? So how did you define success back then, and has it changed from what you define it as now?
Success, I suppose for me, success, whether it's in business, relationships, sport, anything I've ever done, I was involved in a lot of sport and playing and at a high level through school and everything, and even just managing and football and soccer, various other things. For me, success has always been given the best I have myself and just achieving what I think I have the abilities to achieve. Like I said, whether it's sport or business or anything. So I was always my own kind of worst critic. Get an idea in my head, something that I think I want to do or I want to try, and I won't really stop until I figure it out, to be honest with you. and I won't let anybody tell me I can't do it. And the more people tell me I can't, the more I'll try, and the harder I'll try, and the more I'll beat myself up over probably as well. But that's all part of my journey, I suppose. That's who I am. That's the way I am. I often tell a story. I'd be talking to entrepreneurs and I'd be talking to people at all different levels or whatever. And very good at helping everybody figure out their stuff, I suppose. Maybe we're not always perfect at figuring out our own lives and our own stuff all the time. It's like the old story about our granddad on our dad's side, the baker. 43 years baking, but he never baked at home. I do great things in entrepreneurship with startups and everything else in business, but and I do some of it at home, but maybe not enough. It's easier to help others sometimes, but yeah, that determination, that ambition, that kind of self-belief or just belief that this is what you're meant to do, and just achieving constantly, or pushing yourself constantly, or driving yourself to do more, be more, and improve all the time, even when times are really, really hard. Figure it out and move on. That's just the nature of who I've always been. I don't really know where that came from, but I picture myself sitting on a rocking chair, maybe when I'm kind of in the 80s, or if I'm lucky enough to still be around that long. Hopefully looking like an old good-looking version of Sean Connery, even though I'm a good bit shorter.
Oh, we can all wish. We can all dream.
Yeah, and I'm rocking back and forth, and I'm kind of looking back, and I'm looking back, knowing and thinking and believing that I've no regrets, and I gave it my best crack.
Yeah.
And that's what drives me every day, because I just want to make them. I believe I'm lucky enough to have gifts, opportunities, and lots of good luck over the past kind of 50 years. I'll be 50 in August, so over the past 50 years. And because of that, I have a duty to do the best I can to help as many people, and have the biggest impact on this world as I can before I leave. That's what I believe.
Well, that's a worthwhile way of looking at it. And a question I would have then is, what role has failure played in that journey, in your journey? How has failure impacted your view of business, and what kind of failures have you had to endure, and how do you view that?
Yeah, so look, failure, okay, this is a tricky one, because I'd be talking to university students or young entrepreneurs or older entrepreneurs, and you hear a lot of this kind of in the really kind of innovation driven tech space or whatever, fail fast, go again, blah blah blah. You hear a lot of that talk. It's quite cool and sexy, and you look at Miami and all the big ecosystems, Silicon Valley or whatever. This is the kind of the way they're looking at it, or the way they're talking about it, or whatever. And there's a lot. I don't really see it like that. I kind of see it as fail as much as you can. No, that's not it. I think it's learn as much as you can from your failures. That's kind of the way I would view it. So I certainly don't go out to try and fail at something quickly so that I can learn something from it, and then I can move on to the next level. And I don't encourage people to do that. But failure is part of your journey. Failure is part of anybody's evolution. Definitely part of mine, and a part I've embraced my whole life. And you really kind of have to live it, and you kind of have to feel it, and you kind of have to enjoy it. And I know that's probably...
It's a feedback process. It's a feedback loop is the way I've always looked at it.
Absolutely, it is. Yeah. It's really, really important, because you really learn the most important things about yourself, and you figure out sometimes you need to tweak, and you need to decide, actually, this is not the direction I really want to be going. I maybe need to kind of branch off a little bit here, do this first, and then get back on the road and head down there, because... And failure and disappointment and recessions, pandemics, all sorts of different things kind of get in the way of that journey, I suppose. And, I'm not saying they're failures, but like lots of things happen, and things don't always work out the way you want. They actually don't ever always work out the way you want.
No.
So you really have to be flexible enough and adaptable enough, and just believing in yourself enough. And like I said, looking forward to the rocking chair, like at the very end, and knowing that I want to be sitting there happy, looking back at it all, going, yeah, Grant, I did my best, and no regrets, and I wouldn't change a thing. That kind of mindset, really positive, really kind of proactive, always looking at the glass half full, and always thinking that everything, no matter how bad it is an opportunity for you to grow. That's what I tell everybody. That's the way I try and build our projects. That's the way we try and support our companies. And if you're failing, it's not a badge of honor that you fail, but it is a badge of honor if you fail and you fail hard and you learn from that and you bounce back stronger. That's the
Yeah.
badge of honor. It's the learning that comes from failure is what's really important, not the experience of failure itself, if that makes sense.
It's what you take out of, I always say, and it's if you decide after one failure, two failures, 10 failures to quit without learning anything, well, then you have actually failed fully, in my mind. But if you take all of those, everything you've learned from those successes of failures and the feedback, and then you say, right, there's 9 things that didn't work. You may only have to change one more thing, tweak one more element, and then you have your success. And people only see the success event at the end. At that point, they don't care about the 9 or the 27 failures before. So it's usually, if you're persistence beats resistance, and you'll continue on, but you have to be willing to just pick yourself back up. Now, learning from failure, like you're saying, you don't want people to just fail over and over and over again, because there is money involved. Sometimes they do have budgets. It's okay maybe to fail for something that has, like, I work in software, we can fail to some degree, we're writing code, but it does go out to customers, and we have to be careful. But learning from the failure, we want people to have space to try. So like I mentioned on the last one, I don't need to fail just picking up this bottle of water to take a drink. That's not a requirement from me, right? I'm not going to learn anything. But if you're trying something that's a monumental task or something worthwhile doing, there are going to be inherent challenges in it, and you're likely to have some road speed bumps and failures, you may call them, but they're just baked into the process. So don't take them as failure, take them as an absolute part of what you're doing. You have to learn, but failure only comes when you kind of give up. You hit one obstacle or 10 obstacles and you just quit. That's failure.
What happens as well with failure, Alan, you see things in a different way. When things are going well, it's very easy for us to all focus and be comfortable and not really out of our comfort zone or whatever. Everybody around is looking, going, wow, they're brilliant, and you're kind of thinking, wow, this is kind of easy or whatever. We all have them moments where you're in the zone and everything's working.
It never lasts.
Yeah, you're not really out of your comfort zone, and it doesn't last. But when things go sideways and things don't really go your way, you're not just learning from that. You're
growing.
New ideas are coming. New opportunities present themselves, and I suppose it's not just about learning from your mistakes and kind of, if you're making the same mistake, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 times, you really just need to stop, and just do something completely different or do something else.
Try a new career.
You have to be learning, I suppose, quicker than to find a new career, maybe.
You have to know when to pivot as well and play to your strengths.
Yeah, but you need to be able to do it with your eyes wide open and be able to see the opportunities, because sometimes you'll have your mind set on doing something, you might fail a couple of times, or it mightn't go the way you hoped or the way you wanted, or external factors might get in the way and kind of make a mess of it on you. But while all of this madness is happening and you're running around like a headless chicken trying to figure out what you're going to do next or whatever, if you are all over the place or whatever and you're not handling that failure or the learning process or whatever that well, you're going to miss other opportunities that exist and other things that you could also be doing alongside whatever it is isn't going the way you want. Or maybe you're going to say, no, actually, you know what, I'm going to go and do this instead. That's a much bigger opportunity and better fit for me. So you need to be able to see that stuff. And that's where, I suppose, you talk about success, learning from failures and whatever else. Like I said, try not. There's a great story, actually. You mentioned kind of roadblocks, but potholes is a good one. And it's a really good entrepreneur that I know and have so much time for. One of our clients in Meath Enterprise, they started as a 2-person startup 25 years ago in one of our hubs, and they employ 350 people now across different locations, and they're shipping all around the world. Great guy, amazing social conscience or whatever, and he tells this story, working with entrepreneurs organization and different things that we've collaborated on over the years. He tells the story of failure or, making mistakes or something bad happens. And do you ever get when we're kids, obviously me and know this, or, we don't really listen to advice that easily. And a lot of people can be like that. Sometimes it's kind of, if I tell you how to shortcut something or skip all the hassle or the problems and just move straight on to a version of success, you're probably going to, depending on who you're listening to anyway, you're probably going to say, actually, I'm going to try and figure that out for myself. You know what I mean? Because that's the way I have to do. I'm going to fail fast and I'm going to whatever. But John tells this story about the pothole at the end of his road. So he's not, I'm just making this up, he's living on this lovely little suburban road, maybe, and you've got all these lovely houses, and he drives out of his house one morning and it's 4:30 in the morning. It's still maybe dark and he's got a busy day ahead. But all of a sudden, there's a pothole at the top of his road, and he drives into it. He bursts his tire. It costs him a couple of £100 to get it fixed. He has to wait an extra 2 hours. All his meetings are messed up, and he's just cocked up his day. So if John rings or texts into a WhatsApp group, who knows, all his neighbours, and tells them all there's a pothole at the end of the road, don't drive into it, because if you do, it's going to cost you this, it's going to wreck your day, it's going to ruin all your meetings, it's going to whatever. Do you think all them people are going to drive out and go, well, do you know what, feck John, he's not going to tell me what to do. I'm going to figure this out for myself, because maybe it'll be different for me. Should they all drive out and just drive into the pothole? Or would it be smarter just to drive around the pothole, save all that money, save all that time, go about your day and learn something from advice or from experience or from a mentor, rather than thinking you have to figure it all out for yourself? That's kind of the way I think. And sometimes being open, whether it's your own failures or your own inadequacies or weaknesses or somebody else's successes, you have to be open to seeing things and spotting things and learning from others as much as you can, because we don't have a lot of time in this life. And as you get older and you're hitting 50 the way I am, you realize like the months and the years go by quick. And when you've got big ambitions and big goals and big ideas, you got to learn as much as you can. As fast as you can. So it's not just about failing fast, it's about learning fast. And sometimes you've got to let others help and ask for help.
Yeah, you could touch on something there, like don't reinvent the wheel is kind of the way you would summarize it, but stand on the shoulders of other giants that have gone before you and learn from them. And I suppose mentors is a big part of that. How, maybe you have a kind of a story about mentors. How have mentors shaped your life and career in business and otherwise, even life, just how you live your life, not specifically in your career, but mentors in general? And how would you advise people around mentorship?
Mentors, I'd probably be a lot of people I would look up to or whatever, but do I know them directly, or I could probably count on one hand quite easily the amount of mentors I've actually had where but for me, I suppose I would have a lot of respect for lots of people from afar or who I'd know that would be close to me.
Yeah.
I suppose I'm so focused and so driven and ambitious myself in the types of things I want to do and the way I want to do it, the way I want to do them. So, I'm probably the type of person that can't work for somebody else. I have to work for myself. I was born to be entrepreneur just because I'm a stubborn git and you can't tell me what to do. So I've always been in charge of everything. I've always been running the business. I've always been managing the company. I've always been managing the team or whatever it might be. And I can't seem to do it any other way. So maybe that's my weakness. Who knows? But I suppose that single-mindedness of, grand, well, I'm going to try and do this also, but I'm going to do it different to everybody else or different to him or different to her or different to them or whatever the case may be. So what drives me more is that kind of long-term vision and that's those values and that belief that I believe there's a lot about this world and there's a lot about business and the way we do business in terms of that socially conscious piece or whatever that needs to change. There's a lot of things out there that I'm not happy about or I don't like and I have strong opinions on. I don't let them get in the way of how I do my work and how I support everybody. Not at all in terms of political or anything else, but I have strong values and strong opinions about how we should look after our planet and our people and our neighbours and our communities and how we should build our companies and everything else. So I've got really, really kind of strong views and values on what I want to do and how I want to do it. And maybe I'm not saying there isn't lots of people out there that are doing amazing stuff. Of course there is, and there's lots I see from afar. But mentors that are close to me that I'm learning from, probably not as many as I would like.
Yeah.
But some in different ways that I take little bits from. But as soon as I see something that I like and or somebody that I like, I see something that maybe I don't, and something that I want to tweak or change and put my own stamp on it. So, like I said, I'm constantly trying to build and reinvent and focus on figuring out who I am and who I need to be, so that all the skills or all the abilities I have, I can put them to best use. And so I'm always willing to learn, and I'm always watching, and like a sponge, I suppose, taking in as much as I can, but maybe not focusing on any one person in particular for long enough to consider them a mentor.
Yeah.
Even though I mentor lots of people from day to day, and I'd encourage people to look for them all the time and seek them out when they can find them, because
Yeah.
they're amazing.
They don't always have to be in real life, I suppose, is the thing.
No, they don't. No,
they can be
there
from
could be
afar.
lots of things. Like sometimes I look at my 9-year-old daughter, and just the way she'll give me a hug after a busy, stressful day, or pat me on the back, or something she'll say, or whatever. She inspires me sometimes. You know what I mean? And I see the innocence, and I see the intelligence and everything in her eyes, and mentorship and inspiration and everything else can come from so many different things and different ways. It's not just from other people. It can, that's my view on that anyway. But I build a career on mentoring and helping, or connecting people, or showing people how to be inspired, or how to be mentored, or how to figure out who they are so they can drive themselves forward, I suppose, is really helping people become the drivers and the leaders and the movie stars in their own life.
So moving gears, or switching gears a little bit then towards yourself. So in order to do what you do, you have to maintain a kind of a high level of energy, right? Day to day, you have to keep your head clear. You have to be up and ready to tackle all of these things on your to-do list, which is probably, lengthy and extensive at this point, every day. But what would be your guidance about rituals, like success rituals, morning rituals, or habits that contribute to your being able to tackle these type of busy days and the schedules that you have? What are things that you say are a must to keep in place, or that people should try to keep in place in order to tackle a day like that, or to be successful in their day?
Yeah, so look, again, anyone who tells you that they don't have days where they struggle, and they don't have months or years where everything is falling apart, and all the organization or success that came before all of a sudden just seems like it's so hard to pull it together, or make things happen, or whatever, is full of crap, to be honest with you. Like, I'm like anybody else. It's up and down. But as I get older, I'm certainly starting to realize that I'm not the person I was in my 20s. So in my 20s, I thought I was some sort of superhuman, God knows. You're a party animal, I suppose, like in the evenings and the weekends, but you're a workhorse during the day, and you're working multiple jobs, and you're running businesses, and you think it's a badge of honor that you don't have to actually sleep more than kind of 5 hours a week, and all this kind of stuff, and multitasking, and just the madness. And that's exactly who I was in my 20s, and probably well into my 30s, to be honest with you as well. That's unsustainable. You need to have really great people around you. So as I'm building out different businesses, and I have a number of different businesses that I run or I'm building, it's impossible to do it without fantastic or amazing people, but obviously people that I can relate to, people that get my values, people that understand that. So what I'm learning as I get older is that you certainly, as you start scaling things anyway, you can't do it all on your own, and you do need to. It gets harder, to be honest with you. Keeping the weight off, keeping the head focused. The stress, the anxiety. Your ticker, all sorts of different things. Like, as we get older, it doesn't get easier. It does get an awful lot harder, even mentally in your head. Trying to be as motivated or ambitious or as strong when things aren't really going your way. That kind of keeping yourself on track. It does get harder. Lots of things are happening around you. I suppose, people are getting older, people are getting sick, there's so much going on. It gets harder and harder. So for me, constantly bouncing back into what I've done before, on and off over the years that's worked really well. So the morning routine is very important. At the moment, I get up now at 6 o'clock. Well, a little bit before, but 6 o'clock I'm in the gym. I'm lucky enough to have a little gym down the end of the garden here or whatever. So I'm in the gym at 6 o'clock with him, and nothing major. We do about 30, 40 minute workouts, pumping the weights and the boxing bags and bit of martial arts or whatever else, with some good loud dance music or a bit of R&B or whatever blasting away in the background just to kind of get us in the mood. Then, then I'm bringing back into you're up and down and all over the place. COVID kind of throws us all off, and then we're all getting back on track, and everything is just as mad as it was before COVID, if not worse. So You're constantly juggling and trying to stay on track and reinvent yourself. But meditation, I think, is very important, even if it's only 5 or 10 minutes. I like to meditate, and people think meditation, for those who don't do it or aren't quite sure, sometimes it's just sitting somewhere, closing your eyes for 5 or 10 minutes, and that's it. Don't let things run through your head. Whatever happens. Try and just focus on your breathing is what I try to do anyway. And whatever happens in my head or whatever is going on, it doesn't really matter as long as I'm sitting there present and thinking about whatever is going on in my head or listening to the sounds outside, who knows, whatever. But that's meditation. It's as simple as that. I do like to do that. I like to get started early in the morning if I can, with emails and with various other things. Try and get that out of the way before everybody's waking up, and because you send off an email or a handful of emails and you kind of get like 10 times that amount back when you do it during the day. So I try and avoid the inbox during the day, to be honest with you, and do that in the morning when people are either still in bed or not even at the office yet. And then I avoid it for the rest of the day, because for me, as you can probably tell, it's about getting out there and talking to people, helping people, making things happen, working on the business as opposed to working in the businesses. I don't want to be getting caught up with operational stuff and everything else. I need to be thinking about the longer term or the bigger term. Social media is something I used to be massive on before COVID. Now I keep it to a minimum, to be honest with you. I try and turn off the phone when I need to get good quality work done, silence it, stay away from social media.
And I think you use it more as a tool anyway, right? You
say that again?
You pretty much use it more as a tool, the way
I don't really use it personally as much as I used to. So it really is work related, but the multitasking thing I said earlier on, as well as social media and the phone, is the biggest distraction. I don't know about you or anybody else, but like I've probably got God knows, nearly 20 different email addresses like linked into my phone. God knows how many different social media accounts across different businesses and projects I'd be involved in. You kind of have to just put it on airplane mode every now and then, or just turn it off and let people leave messages. Like, there's nothing that's going to be that important, and they'll find you if they have to some other way, but that can't wait until tomorrow. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Get your stuff done in the mornings, stay away from it in the evenings if you can. I would have been guilty of not doing any of this, to be honest with you, even up until a few years ago before COVID. But you gotta switch off the phone. You gotta get away from the madness. You gotta clear your head and focus on stop multitasking is another thing I'd say. I'm doing less and less of it. Yeah. Anyone who thinks that multitasking, like I used it for 20 years, is the best way and we're all amazing because we can multitask and do loads of different things at the one time is nuts. That's not the way it is. You need to be able to stop that and focus on certain things, especially when you get to a higher level, where you're running your own business or trying to, really redesign your own life and take actual control of your life.
It takes laser focus.
Multitasking. You've got to be more laser focused. Absolutely. I mentioned mindfulness and meditation. You can do that anytime. I do that sitting in the car sometimes. Sleep.
Yeah.
Okay. I talked about getting 5 hours of sleep all the way through my 20s. It's so important. I have to be getting, not because I need it. I could probably get 4 or 5, 6 hours sleep in the night and still get up and be okay the next day and go about it. But no, I aim for 7.5 hours every single night.
To function
and if that
well.
means going to bed, yes, going to bed earlier if I can. And it can be challenging with young kids and a young family and everything else, but you have to do it. And maybe it's better that they're on a similar routine as me when it comes to that. It's good for everybody, but getting enough sleep, quality sleep, having your smartwatch or your ring or whatever it is to kind of track everything.
Telling you to go to bed.
Keep an eye on it. Yeah, absolutely. All these little things, they're the only notifications you should be listening to that hour of the evening. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The good ones, the healthy ones. I do the intermittent fasting. So again, as you're getting older, you need more sleep. You need to stop multitasking. You need to just slow down a little bit. Not slow down, but just the energy that you have and the madness that you have. If you still have that madness and you want to be a million miles an hour, you need to do it in a different way
Need to be more
and
efficient.
in a more focused way and be more efficient. Work smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can work harder when you're younger, but if you keep working like that as you get older, you're going to make yourself sick. You're going to end up kind of down out early. So I do the intermittent fasting, and for anyone who's interested, I would have been terrible, as you probably remember. I'd come home after a busy day. You'd probably have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then you come home. You'd have dinner when you get home, maybe 6, 7 o'clock, whatever time you get home. And then I'd be working on the laptop. I'd be doing stuff. I think I'm deadly, yeah, I'll keep going till late, blah, blah, blah. And before you know it, you're sipping on the coffee and your munchies out of the press. And then you may flick on something on the telly because now you've got a second wind and you can't go to bed because your head is racing. So you're watching the telly and 12 o'clock at night, you're still eating. Mad routines, stupid stuff. But like you do that. Everybody does that. Well, I did that. I was terrible for that. And I have a sweet tooth. It didn't help. So the intermittent fasting for me, what I do, one of the best things I've ever found, apart from kind of eating vegan products and vegetarian and changing my diet. I'm not a vegan, but I just mix it up an awful lot more and I really go with plant-based. And I think it's helping me as I get older. And, I certainly feel it with my energy levels. But I come back in, the intermittent fasting for me, I have my dinner 6:30, 7 o'clock, and I do not eat. So for somebody who used to nibble away in the evenings while he's working or whatever, I don't eat after 7 o'clock. And I skip breakfast the following morning and I have lunch and dinner. And some days, if I'm really busy at work, I skip lunch and I just do dinner. So I'm either doing an 18 or 23-hour fast, and my energy levels never ever drop. I find me energy levels drop if I eat lunch. I get less.
Yeah, I definitely feel something similar. As soon as you have a big feed, if it's too big, that afternoon slump with a big lunch is a real thing.
Absolutely. So I have more energy and I feel better, and it works for me. Like I said, lots of people do it in different ways, but for me, skipping breakfast and doing the 18-hour minimum and maybe longer, getting more sleep, not as much multitasking, turning that bloody phone off sometimes, bit of meditation and mindfulness. I coach the local soccer teams and I do things for the kids and I do a lot of voluntary stuff. That helps me switch off. I love DIY, so I'm always building or doing designing or doing something myself, and the phone is never with me for that. So as long as I'm not falling off roofs like I did in 2020 or whatever, like it's all good. That's my switch off.
So that's what I was going to ask you next. Actually, was how do you then balance your personal life and work life? How do you strike that balance with such a busy schedule and a family?
Well, that's kind of how I made the decision, a conscious decision when we started our family and we moved away from the city, to get very involved in kids' activities and the kids' lives as much as possible. So from an early stage, even people normally don't think they have the time to do a lot of things, whether it's looking after yourself or doing stuff with your kids or getting involved in the local community. Oh no, I'm too busy, I don't have the time. And that's the first thing. That's our default. My default maybe should be that more and needs to be that more in the future, but up to now probably hasn't been that for enough. So I served on the board of management at the local primary school here in the countryside in Meath for the past 8 years. I only stepped down from that there last month. The local, there's a load of things. It's bonkers. The mind boggles, to be honest with you. But I've done it, and somehow I've made it work, and I've added value. And I coach, like I said, with the kids, and I get involved in a lot of stuff that the kids are doing, and I get to see it a lot. I suppose an important part of that, and this is where the bit of luck comes in. The work I do is I'm close to where I live, so. I'm living in Meath, rural Meath. I'm working in Meath, and that's why the work I do in terms of the hubs and the centres and building those companies outside of the cities and creating ecosystems away from the urban centres. It's really important that people can have a quality of life where they can be involved in the local school or the local soccer club or sports club or whatever, and spend time with their kids and be home in time to see their kids, help with homework, whatever, school activities. But if you're sitting in the car for 2 or 3 or 4 hours every day, you're going to miss out on so much of that. And you're going to be one of them people that's just going to be, have to have no choice but to say, I don't have time to do any of that because you're sitting in the car. And this is something that COVID has certainly changed for a lot of us, whether you're able to work remotely or it's something that you aspire to do and you're going to change your career or change your life or start a business or do whatever you have to do to allow that to happen for you. But I'm lucky. I have a job and I have a career and I have businesses and I can work remotely and fit all them other things in. But I kind of, that's life by design. I've made that happen. I've designed that in such a way, and I've created that look. And it doesn't happen overnight, and it does take time, and it's not easy. But that's what I'm trying to help other people figure out and do.
And it doesn't happen by accident.
No, absolutely. It's like I said, it's life by design, or whatever you want to call it. Like you kind of have to. I made a conscious decision, I suppose, maybe 15 years ago, to put an awful lot more time, effort and energy into family and starting the family and moving away from the city. And okay, the timing wasn't great with the recession and everything else, so I wasn't lucky, but it is what it is. It was still the right thing to do. But that was a conscious decision. As bad as it was and hard as it was for a number of years with the crash, I still did it, and I'm glad I did it, and I wouldn't change it. If I didn't make that decision and I just carried on in business and doing what I was doing, I probably would have lost it all anyway in the crash. But the point being, I wouldn't be coaching the local soccer club, and I wouldn't be down here where I am in a different way of living, out of the hustle and bustle of the city, spending as much time with my kids. I probably would be commuting and traveling and doing all the other stuff and focused on trying to make money and compete with everybody else who's mad to work hard and do whatever. So you kind of got to decide what's for you, and then you got to find it, and you got to figure it out.
Yeah.
Design it and make it happen.
And it kind of has to, I suppose, at different points in your life, like you said, in your 20s, you can do anything. You're a bit of a nomad. You can move around. You're so much more mobile and flexible. But as you move through the decades, you do have to consciously design things around how you want it to be. So that has to all stem from your why. Why do you do things? And that changes as well. So your why in your 20s was probably very different to what your why is now. And what was your why back then before you had a family? Let's say when you were 20, as opposed to now when you, as you mentioned, approaching 50. How has it changed much?
Yeah. Like, look, my why, even though there was always something else there, but it was something at that age I didn't really understand, and in terms of my values and my actual purpose and my actual why, that was always kind of lingering. There was always a gap or a hole or something in there that I could never really figure out how to fill. Money and success in business and everything else and relationships, nothing was filling that. There was always something. I just thought I was a bit mad, or who knows? We all go through it. So there was always something I was looking for, something I needed to find. But my why, I thought back then, was being successful. Having properties, having the big flash cars, going on holidays, having loads of friends, making loads of money, whatever. Basic, shallow kind of things that I realized I didn't really enjoy, and they weren't making me whole. And it wasn't really who I was, but it took me a long time to figure that out, because everybody else is at the same game in many respects, and we're all competing in some way with each other, and it's very hard to kind of step back and get yourself out of a rat race for long enough where you can actually kind of just rethink and redesign your entire life. But I'm lucky that I was able to do that, and I think moving out of the city helped me do that. But that was a conscious decision to move out of the city, so I knew I had to do it. I just didn't know how I was going to do it, and I didn't really understand why I was doing it, but I did it because I had the self-belief and the courage of my own convictions to kind of just, even though I was lost and confused maybe in parts, I needed to change, I needed to rethink, I needed to reinvent. And yeah, well, I suppose when I look back on it now, that was hard. It would be for anybody to do that. Maybe kind of people looking at me, maybe thinking I'm a bit selfish or I'm a bit stupid. I've got young kids and babies at home, and I'm not all the opportunities I have to be working or doing whatever, and I'm not doing it because I want to change, or I have to figure out who I am or whatever. And people people don't really understand that sometimes, but I think it's important for mental health. I think it was important for my kids. I think it was important for me to be grounded and ready to rear a family and know how I wanted to do it. If I wanted to be all about business, I can do that. But that wasn't me. I wanted to be all about my family. So that was the next phase for me. And now my two boys are 14 and 16, and Isabel is, like I always joke and say, 9 going on 21. But she's amazing. And now they're getting to an age where I can start to not get back to what I was or the way I was doing things or whatever, but maybe just doing things in a much smarter, much more coordinated, much more focused way for these last maybe 5, 10, 15, 20 years, if I'm lucky, that I have left to really kind of excel and shine and be ambitious and see what else I can do. So, and that's what I'm thinking now. But my kids and my family and the way I've designed it all is very much part of it and very open and conversational, and I love it. And that's what the way I wanted it to be. But now, now I want to. Now I'm thinking about success and I'm thinking about other things, but in a very different way. Not for the same reasons I thought about it like that. It's more about why. It's more about the impact. It's more about the purpose. It's more about, who I am, where I come from, where I want to go, being on that rocking chair, how I want to help, how I want to impact the world. I'm very, very much kind of stakeholder driven, purpose driven, as opposed to profit driven and shareholder driven. You know what I mean? That's my social conscience is quite strong. So I have to kind of do things a certain way, and figuring that out and having a massive or as big a possible an impact on this world or my community is what I'm trying to figure out now. And being the best I can be in terms of my health, my focus, my discipline, my structure, my daily structure, my morning routine, whatever it has to be. I've got to figure out now how to redesign everything for the next phase of my life, which is back to me and my wife and everything else that I'm trying to do now that the kids are fully reared, but getting there.
What a piece of advice would you give to your 20-year-old self if you could?
20-year-old self.
Knowing what you know now.
I would... Okay, so I did go to college and everything else, and I got my business degree fairly early on after I finished school. Didn't probably really take it serious and that kind of stuff. I just did it for the paper, sake of getting it done, and went on to do other things then over the years. But so probably not really that. Focusing on education, it's very important. I push my kids to do it, but you really got to know why you're doing it and what you're doing. And you don't have to do that if you have another plan or whatever. So it's not the be all and end all, but I suppose something I've learned over the years between investing in property and stocks and shares and crypto and other things, and the power of compounding interest. And certainly the one gift I'll give my kids, from the minute the eldest lad turns 18, is the ability and the knowledge to be able to start investing from an early age. Simple investing, and there's lots of ways he can do that, or anybody can do it. And when you do it over a longer period, the benefits are fairly substantial and fantastic. So what I know over the past maybe 10 years, or what I've learned, or how I've kind of come to realize how I can maybe work smarter or invest smarter for the longer term. It's not long enough. I haven't got long enough. But if you started at 18 or 20, I think is the age you asked me about, if I was looking back then and giving myself advice, I would be definitely saying party and experiment and set up businesses and do everything that you did. Don't change too much of that, because that made me who I am, and I'm very happy with all of that. But just be a little bit cuter and start investing and start planning sooner, because then you get to kind of 50 or 60 with 30 or 40 years planning an investment under your belt. If you're smart and you know what you're doing, you can do very, very well out of that and not have to work so hard to get there. Most people don't realize that until it's too late and you don't have enough years left. And even if you do have enough years left, maybe you don't have enough time to enjoy it afterwards because you're too bloody old.
So would you have...
that's my bit of advice.
Yeah. Would you have thought then at 49, I think, yeah, you're 49, you're going to be 50, and this year I'll be 45. Did you think this is what 49 or 50 would be like for you, or what it would feel like? Because I was only talking about this with somebody recently, and they were like, Jesus, when I thought about this age back then, I thought it was over, it was done, there was nothing left for me to achieve, there was no energy left. And that's so ridiculous now when, you know, being the age I am and the age you are, do you think about it, like renegotiate what 50 means as opposed to what it meant back then and what you thought it would mean?
Yeah, I probably started doing that a few years ago because, in fairness, my lovely wife has been telling me I'm nearly 50 for the past 4 or 5 years. So this whole 50 thing is not really going to be any big deal to me when it happens this year.
Yeah.
But
she's preparing you for it. That's nice.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, no, I am kind of constantly kind of reinventing and kind of re-strategizing. And again, look, you know, just you have to be honest with yourself. Like, look, I don't get to do it often, but I'll just give you an example. If there was a particular day at the weekend, say after a busy week or activities with the kids or something like that, and again, I don't get to do, maybe I should do it more, but anyway, I'm starting to listen to my body and listen to myself more than I ever would. Yeah. I'd listen to my head, I'd listen to my gut, I'd listen to my instinct. I do all of that, no problem. I always have, always will. But listening to your body when you're tired and actually saying, I'm actually tired, so I'm going to get a power nap for 20 minutes or something, whether it's in the car or whatever you might be. And listening to yourself, like I do that more now. And never, that was a sign of weakness maybe for somebody like me before, you know what I mean? Oh no, I don't get tired, I'm well able, but like, so yeah, I'm very different now, but the ambition or that, I won't say energy, because the energy levels are definitely not what they used to be. Okay, which is why you need to sleep more and do all the other stuff and eat better. And that's a constant struggle for all of us. Okay, so I haven't got that figured out, but I'm certainly trying to do the right things. But the energy levels aren't there physically, but mentally they are, if that makes sense. The energy levels in my head have never, ever dissipated. They never stop. So that's the piece I always need to be figuring out and managing and coping with, I suppose. But physically, it's very different as I approach 50, and it's much harder. So you got to really listen to your body, and look after yourself better. And that can be hard, you know. Yeah. For me anyway, I find that's probably the hardest part for me is actually looking after myself. I feel like I eat well and I kind of work out and I do things as busy as I am, but I know I should be doing a lot more. Yeah. I'm trying to fit. So the challenge of scaling back on things that you do, whether it's work or business or volunteering or whatever, so that you can increase more for yourself. That's the part I struggle with sometimes. Doing more for me, looking after me more. Like at the end of the day, if I'm not here in 5 years because I don't look after myself, kids, my wife, my friends, my community, my businesses, my employees, everybody suffers. So if I look after myself, I can do more, I can be more, I can be here longer. So, but I find that hard. Looking after me, being good to me, whatever else is not something I can do great things for everybody else, but maybe not enough for myself a lot of the time. And that's what I'm trying to get my head around as I get older. And that's what I'm trying to figure out how to do better.
So I have a couple more questions left. But just on that point there, that you mentioned, it really is looking after yourself so that you can be of service to the people that you want to be of service to, your family, the people you're involved in business. And because without the vehicle that you're in, which is your body, if it's not in good running order, you can't help anyone. So health before wealth, or health before success, or health before anything is kind of paramount to me. And it's something that we've discussed in the past, and I'd like to maybe in the future even to come back on and we can talk about this in more detail, because it's something that I really have a lot of thoughts about and a lot of experience in certain areas, so we can get back into that. The last couple of questions I have, so the second last is, what do you want to accomplish then in the next 10 years? through your 50s?
What do I want to accomplish? I want to, I suppose, figure out what we just discussed in terms of how I look after myself better and how I maybe start with. I think I'm at the next phase of life, or I'm coming to that next phase of life where I need to maybe do another restructure. Because the pace and the nature of the amount of work and things that are there at the moment are not sustainable. I know, so I need to do a bit of a restructure. But I want to restructure things in such a way that I'm still able to help and be involved in the things I love to do, and have the impacts and help make the differences that I want to be making, without having to work as hard as I'm working now, while looking after my own health and my own wealth, so that I can hopefully live a long enough and fruitful enough life, I suppose, to be able to kind of see me kids do well, maybe see the grandkids, and like I said, get to sit on that rocking chair, grow old and happy with my wife, maybe travel a little bit after the family's gone, and enjoy the world, not just get sick and kind of fade away when everything kind of, when my job is done. So my ambition for my 50s is really to kind of start preparing myself for my 60s and 70s and hopefully my 80s. That's really kind of where it's at. But I want to be able to still, I won't stop working.
Yeah, I don't think I
could
will.
ever stop working.
Never stop moving, because movement is what keeps keeps the engine going.
I don't think I ever want to stop, but I just want to figure it out. I know in 10 years' time it'll be nearly impossible for me to be doing what I do now. So, and then 10 years after that, it gets even harder, and anything can happen in between. Like I said, illness or God knows. So, you can't plan for everything or anything, but you need to have a plan. And that's where I'm at, I suppose. I've done a lot of heavy lifting to date. I think I've done a good enough job. I'm happy enough with what I have and where I'm at, but I still have big ambitions, big ideas. And I want to enjoy trying to bring a lot of that to life and have those big impacts through the 50s, but do it in such a way that I'm not winding down, but just working smarter, working better, looking after myself more. So
putting systems in place, essentially, so that you can do more without having to, drive yourself into the ground, kind of thing.
100%. Have a bigger impact by doing this. That's what I need to figure out.
Efficiency.
And be around and be on this journey for longer. I love life, and I love learning, and I love everything about life and my life, good or bad. Feeling pain and failure and all these things. It's feel alive. Like, that's when you know you are alive, when things aren't going well. You know what I mean? Like, it's great when everything is going well, but when things don't, and you feel like you can't go any further and you can't do it any longer, and it's all falling apart, or you can't get out of bed, or you can't face that meeting, or you can't do whatever, and then you get it done, and you brush yourself off and you slap yourself in the face, or whatever it is you need to do. Bit of cold water, or a bit of Tony Robbins, jump up and down and scream at the top of your voice, who knows. But you do something and you get through it. And when you get through it and you realise, I still have it. I'm not going to give up, and I'm going to keep going, and I still have a role to play, or whatever. That's the buzz for me. It's not the winning and the success of everything just working out. It's the getting back up and realizing that you can still do this. That's really what drives me, and that's what makes me feel good and keeps me going.
So then my last question, leading on.
You keep saying that, your last question.
No, that was my second last question. I said two.
Okay,
I said two. So my last question for today, we'll have lots of conversations, of course, but my last question for tonight is, how do you define legacy, and what impact then do you hope to leave on the world before you're done?
Impact on the world before I'm done. Again, getting back to purpose and why, my why, and values, and how I I grew up in Dublin in the 70s and the 80s, tough times. an amazing upbringing. I loved it to bits, and it's like watching The Snapper or Into the West or any of those Dublin movies or whatever. Like, it was great childhood and great upbringing, but it was tough. But I wouldn't change it for anything. But I have values, I think, that come from that upbringing, as well as everything else I've learned and seen over the past 50 years. And they're very deep rooted and they're very strong. And I'm always very determined to, I suppose, support the underdog, or help people who everybody deserves a chance to live their best version of their own life in this world. And I just think, too often there's too many structures and there's maybe too many reasons why too many people are not getting that chance. And will probably never get that chance. And I don't like that. And that doesn't sit comfortable with me. And so I work hard to get to a level in this world and a level in this life where I can have as big an impact as I can to create structures, or to create an environment, or to create an ecosystem or a culture or a community or anything at all where more people can have a chance, like little Gary growing up in Dublin or whatever all them years ago. And I probably shouldn't have had the chances I did, but I did, and I made it happen. But there was lots of great people that helped me along the way. So my legacy is really, I suppose making whatever difference or having whatever impact I can have that allows other people to have the courage, the power, the knowledge, the ability, the access, whatever you want to call it, to be able to take control of their own lives in a positive way and have their own amazing impact on the world. And I think if I can do my bit, and then several people below me do their bit, but in a similar way with the right values and the right purpose, and we all keep, well, then, that's really it. For me, business, all the other stuff, like I said, all them years ago, I thought that's what it was about, but it's not about that. It's about becoming the best version of yourself that you could ever possibly dream to be, and then helping other people figure out how to do the exact same. And if I live my life doing that, and I'm on my rocking chair knowing that I couldn't have done any more, and there's loads of people out there now carrying that baton and doing the exact same thing I spent 50 years doing, that's it. And all them people will know who I am and what I did. And that's it. That's enough for me.
That sounds good. Gary, I want to thank you so much again for coming on as the first guest, even with our little tech hiccup at the start. Hopefully everybody could hear everything on this stream, and I hope to have you on again many more times so we can discuss lots of other topics that we've discussed, in our conversations offline, off screen many times. But I'd like to be able to bring some of that value to people so they can hear some of the insights and things we've spoken about, and share it for as many people around to take something from, because sometimes it only takes that one little extra thing of inspiration to push you over the line for success. So hopefully we can be a tiny part of that, and a catalyst for people's success in life. So thank you again.
Yeah,
and
you're very welcome, bro. And
I appreciate
fair
it.
play to you. It's a good thing you're doing, getting out there and getting people on there, and hopefully people can listen and learn and benefit and hear something and relate to something, and it gives them a glimmer of hope or a glimmer of courage or anything that they need. And fair play. Glad to be able to support and help, and look forward to doing it again. Well done.
Thanks everyone. Have a great rest of your Saturday night, what's left, and I'll see you again next week. Have a good one. Take care.